Hello, BookTube. Hello, friends. Welcome to Lizzie Faye Loves Books. I'm Elizabeth, and today is Friday, March the 5th, and I thought originally I would probably film a Friday Reads video today and catch you up with what I've been reading so far for March Mystery Madness, but since it's only the 5th day of the month, I think that I'm going to wait until maybe tomorrow or the next day and do like a week one wrap up for March Mystery Madness and for, basically what I've finished for the first week of March, because I really need to do a February wrap up today and get this box of books put away, returned to the library, all of that, so that I can just clear February off my to-do list and move on with March and March Mystery Madness and Middle Grade March and March of the Mammoths and the Irish Readathon and all of the good things happening in the month of March. So let's get started. Now, I finished a total of 21.5 books in the month of February, and the reason I even bring up the 0.5 is because that is one of the books that the main books that I was reading for the Historathon, and I did finish it last night. So that being said, I feel like if February had been just, a regular length month, I could have gotten it done. I could have made myself get that done within the month. So it's all good. It's fine. I'm still counting it, and I'm going to be able to tell you about all 22 of these books because I have finished that 22nd book as of last night. So just to kind of give you a summary of everything, of the 21 books, 15 of them were audiobooks, 6 of them were in print. And to break down the genres and age groups, 2 of the books were children's picture books, 2 of them were middle grade books, 3 of them were adult nonfiction. And the reason I specify adult is because at least one, almost 2 of the children's books were nonfiction as well. And so I just, don't want to overlap in this list. Then I had 7 that were romance, and some of those were historical. In fact, some of my nonfiction were historical. So I counted all of those for the Historathon. I had 1 mystery book, and then 1 other book that was just historical. It wasn't a romance, and that counted for the Historathon as well, obviously. I had 1 that was science fiction or futuristic, and that was one that I carried over from January. I had 4 that I would categorize either as fiction or humorous fiction, something like that. And then the half, which I've now finished, is a YA historical. So some of my personal goals, I mentioned that I participated in 3 readathons. Well, one of those was my own readathon, the Little House readathon, and I finished 2 books. Actually, no, of the 3 Little House books that I read, I didn't finish any of them in the 4 days, which was February 7th through the 10th. I finished our group read like just before the live show, which was a few days after. And also I read a children's storybook that I didn't read until I think the 11th or 12th. And then I had a very long audiobook that was nonfiction, and I didn't finish that up till right at the end of the month. So I read them because of the readathon. I just didn't finish them during the readathon. And then I also read 2 books that I would count for the Black Author Readathon. That was hosted by several romance booktubers, and Chloe from Always Booked was the one who I first heard about it, and I just watched her video today. She was able to get a blackout and read something for all of the prompts, and there were a lot of them. It was like a full 5x5 bingo board, so that was awesome. And did I mention that I was on her channel today for her TGI Friend video today? That was so awesome. We filmed that a few weeks ago, and it was super fun, and I have been doing a few live shows lately in regards to March Mystery Madness, and I've been filming those on my computer. I think I'm going to have to start doing live shows on my phone because the audio has just not been what I want it to be from my computer. And I want to apologize to Chloe because I was watching the video this morning that we filmed for her channel, and I kept hearing some interference, and I would almost guarantee that that was from my end of things, and it was because of my old computer. So Chloe, please accept my apologies for that. Thank you to all of you who watched despite the audio interference, and thank you for everyone who has watched the live shows that have come from my channel, despite the fact that the audio has not been great. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate your support, and just know that I am working to try to improve that for the future. And I am going to be doing live shows every Tuesday for this month, as well as a couple of author interviews. And I may just do those from my phone for now and continue to work towards getting a new computer. So hopefully we can do that. Anyway, back to the readathons. So then the big readathon that I participated in for the whole month is the Historathon. That was hosted by Angie, Science Mama, and Amanda, the Curly Reader. And that was really fun. I enjoyed that a lot. Now, I started out saying in my TBR that I was really going to focus on just one vertical line, the one on the far side, which was to, not in this order, but to read a book that was set in a war, not World War II, and to read a book with a name in the title, and to read a book that was a subgenre of historical fiction. So I did that. In fact, the one that was set in a war other than World War II is the one that I just finished last night. So I'm glad that I got that done. And because I decided to go ahead and read the group read, I was able to then look at everything else I was reading and plug them into the different categories. So I consider that I got a blackout for the Historathon, and I read something that I could count for every prompt. Now, were they full-length adult books? No, I'm counting some children's books for those, but they're historical, they fit the prompts, and I think the initial intent was for that Historathon to be historical fiction, but I'm going to count some historical nonfiction as well, and we're just going to go with that, and I'm just going to count it and say it's done. So I'll show you what I read for each of those prompts. But then I did, then I did 3 group reads. I mentioned the one for the Little House Readathon, which was Young Pioneers by Rose Wilder Lane, and I'll start pulling out the books in just a minute. Then I also did the group read for this Storathon, and so that I did not love. It was a tough book. It really was. And then I also did the group read for the Book Sisters book, which was the it was called Southern Storms by Brittainy C. Cherry. And even the Book Sisters said, you know, the ones who had read previous books by her said that they didn't love that one as much as some of her earlier books. And I didn't love it either. It was pretty graphic. And even Chloe, she was like, I'm so sorry, you know, of all books for you to read her the first time, you know, this one was pretty graphic. But, you know, it's okay. I knew going into it that there was a possibility of that. And, but because I read it or listened to it on audio, I was able to participate in the discussion on their live show that they did at the end of the month. So that was fun. And so that was 3 group reads. And because Brittainy C. Cherry is an author of color, I can count that book, as well as a Newbery Honor book that was just awarded this year that also has an author of color for the author. And so those are the 2 books that I can count for the Black Author Readathon. And then I met some of my personal goals, such as I did some author binges. I read 4 books by one author and 3 books by another, all audio. And then I did read a Newbery Honor book, and I read another book in the Newbery series that I'm reading, or I finished it, and that's a series from the 60s. I'm working my way up to a Newbery book, so that's good. So 2 Newbery-related books. And also I made some progress in a YA trilogy. I said earlier in the year that I was going to try to finish 12 different middle grade or YA trilogies that I had read the first one of, and each month I would work on finishing another, you know, a different one each month. So the one that I finished was the one that I just finished yesterday. And I didn't finish the trilogy. I only finished the second book, but I had to read it in print. And y'all know I'm so slow reading in print. And so the third book in the trilogy I can get on audio, so I will probably pick it back up in April or May, and I'm not going to worry about it for March because it's not a mystery. So I did meet some of my personal goals. I did finish one series, and I made progress in 4 others, and I started 2 more. And I'm happy about the author binging that I did. And most of those, well, no, about half of those were books I owned, and the other half I got from the library. But I borrowed audio from the library for all of those. And so let's just get to what I read. The books that I carried over from January. One of them was Ready Player 2 by Ernest Cline. I didn't love this as much as the first one, and I had forgotten that there was so much foul language, but still, it was fun. I'm glad that I read it, and this is a new release. I think it just came out in November, so I wasn't sure if I'd be able to get this physical book back in time to show it in this video, but it just came in like yesterday, and I was able to pick it up from the library, and so I do have physical copies of everything that I read for February except for one, and so I'm excited to be able to show you those things. So then the other things that I finished that I had carried over from the month, because I carried over like 10 different books from January to February, and the same for February to March, but a lot of those are books that I intended to carry over, that I'm just taking my time to read, and these were all books that I thought I would finish in January, and I just didn't, but I did finish several of them in February. So one of them was one I started for Ribsat, Toponymity by John Bemelmans Marciano. I've talked enough about that I'm not going to go into that anymore. I dropped it, but I'll get it in a minute. It's a nonfiction book, and this is also a nonfiction book, The C.H.A.O.S Cure by Marla Cilley. I need to find out how to pronounce her name. She's the Flylady. That's what I'll just say is the Flylady. And then I finished another book in the Chronicles of Brittainy by Lloyd Alexander. And again, this is so short. I carried this over from January into February. Finally got it done. And really, I didn't read much of it in January. This is book 3, The Castle of Lear. And I have checked out book 4, which is Terran Wanderer, I think is the name of that one. I'm hoping to get that read, and it will count for middle grade March. And then there's just one more in the series, and it is the Newbery winner that I am trying to get to. It's from the 60s. This whole series is from the 60s. So this will count for, well, the next one, not this one, because I've read this one now. The next one in the series that I have checked out right now will count for the prompt on middle grade March to read a book that was written in the decade that you were born, which is the 1960s. So then another book that I carried over from January, although I didn't even finish, I didn't even start it in January. I didn't start it till February, but I had it checked out from the library since like December. So I finished it, I checked it in, and then I checked it back out again so I could show you. This is a book of 4 short stories, all Amish, Christmas themed in nature, about a midwife who initially, like back 20 some odd years ago, she delivered 4 different babies all in one night. And so now this is, each story is about each of those babies who are now grown up and in their 20s. And it's, each story is about one of those people that she delivered as a midwife. And so that's kind of how it all connects, and I enjoyed them, so I'm glad that I finally got this done. And then my the first readathon was the Little House Readathon, so let me show you what I read for that. Our group read was Young Pioneers by Rose Wilder Lane, and we did a live show. I hosted that here on my channel with Naomi from Naomi's Bookshelf. She was my co-host, so if you want to hear us chatting about more in depth about Laura Ingalls Wilder related books, then check out that video. And if I think about it, I'll put a little card up here where you can click over to it, but I'll put it in the description below. The storybook I read is adapted from Farmer Boy by Laura Ingalls Wilder. This is Winter on the Farm. This is from the My First Little House book series. I got this and read it with my daughter Emily, and I'm counting this on the Historathon prompts for a book set in winter, because hello, winter on the farm. And it's definitely historical. Even though it's a children's storybook, I'm counting it. And then it took me all month to get through this. I did, put it down and pick it back up and all, but it's a chunker. This is Prairie Fires, the American Dreams of Laura Ingalls Wilder. It's by Fraser. This was as much about Rose Wilder Lane as it was about Laura Ingalls Wilder and Almanzo. So it was very interesting. I didn't love it just because, it doesn't always show everything in the best of lights, especially Rose herself. But I think I've always known that Rose was definitely not her mother. Now, was Laura herself, guilty of any kind of negative stuff? Of course, because we're all human. Were some things she wrote in her books not true? Well, yes, because she sort of messed with the time frames a little bit. But still, I love her books, and I really, enjoyed reading them as a child, and I'm still a big fan. So anyway, I did enjoy this, and I'm glad that I read it. And then, well, we're talking about children's books, since I've mentioned a couple of books for younger readers. The Newbery Honor book that I read is called Box. Henry Brown Mails Himself to Freedom. This is by Carole Boston Weatherford, and I'm counting this for the Black Author Readathon, and also it meets my goal of reading something Newbery related every month. And this was very good. I wasn't super crazy about the artwork, but still it is it's very compelling, the story. It's kind of written in verse, and I think it's based on a true story. So, yeah, this is a Newbery Honor book for 2021. It was just published in 2020. And then I mentioned also, I don't have a physical copy of it. The other book that I'm counting for the Black Author Readathon is Southern Storms by Brittainy C. Cherry. And if you want to hear about that book, check out the Book Sisters discussion of it. Like I mentioned earlier, it was pretty graphic. They interviewed her earlier in the month of February, and then they reviewed her book later in the month. So anyway, check out Chloe's channel, Always Booked, if you want to learn a little bit more about Brittainy C. Cherry and that book. Okay, so then let's talk about the Historathon. So I've got the prompts written here. The 3 prompts that I had intended to do, that I set out, I made it a goal to do. The book set in a war, not World War II, is Love and War by Melissa De La Cruz. This is a YA book about Eliza and Alexander Hamilton. This is book 2 in the trilogy, and I read the first one a couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago for book club, and I enjoyed it. I've never really jumped on the whole Hamilton bandwagon. I don't have the music memorized or anything like that, but this was pretty good. I did enjoy it. I am looking forward to the third one. I just kind of want to complete the trilogy. I remember enjoying the first one, but it didn't blow me away or anything. But still, I'm kind of a finisher, so I added it to my list of YA and middle grade trilogies that I wanted to finish this year. So that's why I picked it up, because this was the perfect book for that prompt, because the first section of the book is about battles in the Revolutionary War. So so that was a perfect for that prompt. And even though I didn't finish it in February, I got a little over half done, and it's finished now, so then the next one down that that far row, going from up to down, the next one was to read a book that is a subgenre of historical fiction. Well, I read a subgenre of a subgenre. I just picked up this new edition from the library. I do have this in a bind up of the books 4, 5, and 6 from this series, which is The Brides of the West by Lloyd Copeland. And I had hoped that maybe I would get to books 5 and 6 during the month of February, but I only got to book 5. It was called Ruth. It is called Ruth. And this was a lot of fun. I enjoyed this series very much. I have since finished the last book, which is Patience, and it turned out I didn't get it read in February. I already had it checked out on Hoopla, or I probably would have just waited, but I didn't want to waste that borrow, so I went ahead and listened to it, and it did end up having a little bit of a mystery element, so I can count it for March Mystery Madness, and now I finished that series. But this one, the books 4, 5, and 6 from this series are about a group of girls who are going across country to be mail order brides, and it's just about all the things that happen. You know, nothing happens like they thought it would. And Lloyd Copeland's just a really good author for that time frame. It's set in like the 1870s, 1880s, and I really do enjoy that time frame. And it's clean, it's Christian fiction. So if you like that type of book and you like Wild West kind of stories, then you might enjoy this book. And so that was for subgenre. And then the in the bottom corner was to read a book about to read a book with a person's name in the title. And I listened to on audio The Lost Summer of Louisa May Alcott by Kelly O'Connor McNeese. Now this is a beautiful cover, but all I'm going to say about this book is that I was a little bit scandalized. That's all I'm going to say. And then, so I mentioned that I went ahead and read the group read. I listened to this on audio, The Yellow Bird Sings by Jennifer Rosner, and I was able to participate in, I was able to watch the live show discussion where they talked about this and, you know, add comments and everything. So it was really fun to have read it. However, I didn't love the book. It was pretty gritty and graphic for the type of book that it was. Now, World War II was gritty and graphic, for sure. But it wasn't my favorite. And I felt like some of the descriptions were just the author trying to just go there when, you know, she maybe could have been a little less graphic and still given us the picture of how horrific it was. That's kind of my thoughts on it. But, you know, I'm glad I read it. I do enjoy World War II books, but that one is by far not my favorite World War II fiction. And then the next, so that was the middle prompt. Up on top of that was the multi-generational prompt, and for that I'm going to count Prairie Fires because that is about several generations. And then below that was a book set during winter, which I already showed you. I'm going to count Winter on the Farm by Laura Ingalls Wilder. And then the other row from up to down starts with a place that you have visited. So I'm going to go ahead and count Young Pioneers for that as well, because this was mainly set in the dugout, which is where On the Banks of Plum Creek took place, but it's really a whole mix of a lot of the different storylines from the different Laura Ingalls Wilder books that Rose took and put into this one story. There's kind of a controversy, kind of a little bit of a scandal involved in how this book came about, because this was published before any of the other Little House books. But still, I enjoyed the book, and I have visited quite a few of the places that are mentioned here. Even though it's not real specific, I know what it's talking about when it describes the locations. And then a diverse author, so I'm going to count Box for that, and because that's definitely historical. And then one with no people on the cover. Now, this one may not be super historical, but I think it's from maybe the 70s, so, you know, that's like 50 years ago. Big Stone Gap by Adriana Trigiani, and I am going to count this for that. There's no people on the cover, at least none that can be seen. There may be some people in those houses, but I'm still going to count it. So let that segue into my one of my author binges. I read 3 Adriana Trigiani books. I read this one, Big Stone Gap, and then its sequel, Big Cherry Holler. I really liked Big Stone Gap. That was my favorite of the 3 Adriana Trigiani books that I read, and it was, for the most part, it was very clean, and I enjoyed it. There was a little bit of sex talk, but not really any no graphic scenes at all. Then Big Cherry Holler was tough, but this is a good book for people who talk about wanting to read a romance between people who are married and having problems and trying to work their way through the problems. That's basically what this is about. And, you know, if you think you would like to read a book like that, then this is maybe one for you. However, one thing I've noticed that this author is not afraid to do is a little bit of cheating, like marital cheating, relationship cheating. So I don't want to give any kind of spoilers, but that does occur sometimes. Now, the other book that I read by her is the beginning of another series called the Valentine series. This is very Valentine, and I listened to this in my car. I was able to get it on CD from my library, and I enjoyed this one. It was a little racier than these. These are set in Virginia, very country, and these are more of an urban setting. I think New York City is where they're set. So definitely very different feels. But I was glad to finally be able to read something by this author. Well, I say that I had read in maybe December her book Kiss Carlo, and I really enjoyed that one. It was very clean and no foul language. In fact, there was no foul language in these, which is great. Just a little bit of sex talk and innuendo and that kind of stuff, and a little bit of cheating. So, not squeaky clean, but definitely I wasn't bombarded with a lot of foul language, so that was great. Then my favorite books of the month. Let's see now. Make sure I'm caught up now. Yes, so that's everything for the Historathon. I think I only have 4 books left. They're all from one. Oh, actually, no. Before I get to those, just for fun, I picked this up. This is Talking God by Tony Hillerman. It's the next one that I needed to read in the Lee Porn and Chi series, and I didn't enjoy this one quite as much as the one before this one, which was Thief of Time, but still very enjoyable, and I'm hoping to pick up another one during March for March Mystery Madness, and so I was excited about that. And I did make, I see here my Journey magazine. I did finish a Journey magazine. This one is from February of like 2008 or something. I have a little stack over here that I've been just working my way through since I don't get them anymore from our church. And I have made really good progress. I've stayed on track with all the books I'm reading during my devotional time. I am reading the Bible in 90 days, and I am staying on track. I finished First Chronicles, I think, in by the end of February. And then now I got almost to the end of Second Chronicles, and tomorrow I will read all of Esther, I believe, and start Nehemiah the next day. So I'm reading like 12 to 15 chapters a day, and I never thought I would be able to do it. I just didn't ever see how that was possible, and it's happening, and it's pretty cool. So I'm excited about that, and I have some other devotional books that I'm reading, so when I get to the end of each of those, I'll show them to you when they're done. Then my favorites for the month was for an author binge that I wanted to do. The author is Anne B. Ross, who writes the Miss Julia series, and I have been saying I needed to catch up and be caught up and ready for the new one, which comes out in April. And I think the new one that's coming out this year may be the last one. It's called Miss Julia and the Happily Ever After, or something like that, I think. And I've still got one more in between the last one and these that was not on Hoopla, so I'll have to read it in print unless the audio pops up at some point between now and then. But I have listened to almost all of the Miss Julia books on audio. It's a fantastic audio. The narrator is Cynthia Darlow, and she does a great job with Miss Julia's voice and everyone's voice. So it's really good. So the 4 that I listened to, Miss Julia Inherits a Mess, Miss Julia Weathers the Storm, Miss Julia Raises the Roof, and Miss Julia Takes the Wheel. So these are just fantastic. If you've never read any Miss Julia books, then you'll want to start with the first one. Don't start with the ones I just read. Miss Julia Speaks Her Mind, and that is my second favorite series of all time. The only series that comes before it in my mind is the Jan Karen Mitford years. So Miss Julia is just a fantastic series. I love it so much, and I'm excited that I got 4 of them read this past month. So that's all that I read for the month of February. Pretty much. I mean, I read bits and pieces of things here and there that I didn't finish, and I did have to return at least one book that I had carried over from I can't speak all of a sudden. One book I returned to the library that I, was reading. I started it barely in January, and I just decided I was not going to get to it anytime soon. And that was Christmas Cowbells by Molly Cox Bryan. That was for the Book One Cozies Club for December, I guess. And we're reading so many mysteries this month, and I just decided to move forward and read what I want to read for March and get back to that one at some point. It's a holiday theme book. I do want to read it, but maybe it can wait until this coming Christmas. So that being said, I'm just super excited about what I got read for February, the goals that I met, and everything. Even though it was a short month, and that's pretty much it. So what did you read for February? What was your favorite book that you read for the month of February? I hope you will comment down below. And if you are not subscribed, I hope that you will. I am dangerously close to 1,900 subscribers, and it would make my year if at some point within the next couple months I could maybe hit that 2,000 mark. That would just be great. So if you're not already subscribed, I hope that you will. And that's all for this video. I hope you're having a, oh my goodness. It's time for me to go. I hope you're having a great day. Read a good book, and God bless you.